Throughout the new Forgotten Realms Heroes of Faerun book, a common thread that appears in feats and spells is Spellfire, these bursts of raw and unbridled magic. Well, Spellfire has now made its way into a subclass, the Spellfire Sorcerer. And I think this subclass has a lot to offer anyone looking to play the class, so let's take a look. As usual, we will begin by reading the description of the subclass so everyone is on the same page about what it's trying to do and the vibe of it. Wield raw magic. Your innate power stems from the source of magic itself, the weave. This connection manifests as a rare ability known as Spellfire, and you surge with radiant bursts of this raw magic. Your talent with Spellfire allows you to heal allies, sear enemies, and absorb powerful spells. Wielders of Spellfire tend to have a penchant for wandering. Many travel between cosmopolitan settlements, such as those along the Sword Coast, and wield their magic in service of the common good. Others realize their own strange powers by roaming equally strange lands, from the magic-blasted wastes of the deserts of Anarok to the god-touched wilds of the old empires. Wherever they go in the realms, Spellfire sorcerers are courted by factions with interests in the arcane arts, such as the Harpers, Cult of the Dragon, and Red Wizards. So, what we're looking at here are these powerful people that have the ability to tap into and harness the power of the weave itself and manipulate magic in a way that is very rare, even among magic users. For this reason, they are respected across the realms and generally try to use their unique abilities to support the common good. It's a very cool concept, being able to utilize these bursts of raw magical energy and channel it into something beneficial or even potentially harmful. Before we get into the features, I am trying to get as close as I can to 25,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you like what I do and would like to help support me on that quest, subscribing to the channel and clicking the like button while you're there help way more than you might realize. Thank you. Moving on to our features. First up, at level 3, we get Spellfire Burst. This lets us, whenever we spend at least one sorcery point as part of a magic action or a bonus action on our turn, to choose between one of two effects. Bolstering Flames allows us, or one creature that we can see within 30 feet of ourselves, to gain temporary hit points equal to 1d4 plus our Charisma modifier. And Radiant Fire, which makes it so that one creature within 30 feet of ourselves takes 1d4 radiant or fire damage. We get to choose which one. This is a very strong starting feature. The important thing to remember here is that there is zero additional cost to use this feature. Provided that we have the sorcery points to use on something else, this becomes functionally free. I'm not sure that I can overstate just how valuable that is, especially when the effects are as good as these are. Bolstering Flames, assuming we have at least a +3 Charisma modifier, means that we can give out between 4 and 7 temps per round, again, for free. And yeah, we are limited by the amount of sorcery points that we have, but this is a limitation that exists across the entire class. There is no additional tax levied on Spellfire Burst. As we level up, we will naturally gain more sorcery points, and at level 5 when we get Sorceress Restoration, we get a nice way to recover even more. And there's always the option to convert spell slots if we felt like we needed to. Radiant Fire though is probably less good than Bolstering Flames, though it is still reasonably solid, and much improved from the playtest version, which required the target to make a dexterity saving throw, which wasn't even a save for half, it was save for nothing. Admittedly, it was a d6 then, but I will gladly take a free 1d4 over a 1d6 save for nothing any day. The fact that we can also choose which damage type is used, whether it's Radiant or Fire, is also just a solid perk of the feature, which lets us potentially capitalize on some resistances or weaknesses or even something like a Troll's Regeneration ability. Next up, and also at level 3, we get Spellfire Spells. Like most spellcasting classes, this gives us a subset of spells that we unlock at certain level breakpoints, and from that point forward, we always have them prepared. At level 3, we get Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, Lesser Restoration, and Scorching Ray. At level 5, we get Aura of Vitality and Dispel Magic. At level 7, we get Fire Shield and Wall of Fire. And finally, at level 9, we get Greater Restoration and Flame Strike. This is a fantastic spell list. Like, it's really good. Especially when we consider spells like Cure Wounds, Lesser and Greater Restoration and Aura of Vitality. Those are all great spells that typically most sorcerers do not have access to. What this means is that Spellfire sorcerers also get the added benefit of having some flexibility with their casting, and that they can now also use a good number of healing or restoration spells, which is so strong. It is worth noting that the Divine Soul Sorcerer has not been updated for 2024 yet. As I said, the spell list is very strong, but I think the most obviously strange thing about this is that neither of the new spells that literally have Spellfire in their names, Spellfire Flare and Spellfire Storm, are given to the Spellfire Sorcerer. Yes, they are on the Sorcerer's list, so they could just opt to choose it, but it's just a bit strange that they don't inherently receive these as well. Moving on to level 6, we get Absorb Spells. This feature is kind of an extension of our previous one in that we get another free spell. This time, it's Counterspell. And again, we always have it prepared. On top of that though, whenever a target fails their saving throw against a counterspell that we cast, we regain 1d4 sorcery points. Side note, and then again kind of related to the previous spells feature, it would have been kind of nice to be able to get Spellfire Storm as part of this level 6 feature as well, since that one does also have an ability to sort of prevent spells from being cast. As for what we do have with Absorb spells, I'm a bit conflicted about the feature. I like the flavor of it, it's super fun and on point with what the vibe of the subclass is going for, but the effectiveness and the value this can potentially generate can vary wildly. Also, design-wise, it's not always a ton of fun to have an entire feature dedicated to something that we have absolutely zero control over. It's entirely possible that you go one or many adventuring days without ever encountering a spellcaster. Or, even if you do, as I've mentioned in tons of videos at this point, so many monsters have had what used to be spells transposed into their attack action, which obviously Counterspell does not apply to. Yes, monsters do still have spells, but they're often utility now, sometimes they are control. So not only do you need a fight with a spellcaster, but you also have to hope that they utilize one of their spells and have it be one that you deem worthy to counterspell, and then they still have to fail a save against the counterspell, because yes, as a reminder, counterspell in 2024 does require a constitution saving throw now. So it's just a lot of steps to make this work. Here's the thing though, like I said, the variance is just wild here. This might be something happening to your party every day. Hell, it might even be happening with every single encounter. That's not outside the realm of possibility here. But depending on the nature of your game, this could also just be dead weight for a large proportion of the time. The flip side of that though is that when it does work, it is immediately impactful and very potent at that. Sorcerers want to be using their sorcery points. It's where the class derives a large portion of both their power and their uniqueness from. This, when it lands, gives them additional ways to keep doing all of the things that they want to be doing, and getting the free perks like what we saw with Spellfire Burst along with it. I'll leave it with this. I like the idea of this feature. I think it would have been much better on average in 2014, though it still would have some high variance. As it stands, it's fine. Some people will get ridiculous value out of it, and others will probably forget that it exists. Next up at level 14, we have Hone Spellfire. This feature serves as a buff to our initial level 3 feature, Spellfire Burst. Now, when we use the Bolstering Flames option from Spellfire Burst, the one that granted temporary hit points, we get to add our Sorcerer level to the amount of temps provided. This is super strong. Remember, we are already adding our Charisma modifier, which is likely sitting at least +4 here. So between just our Charisma modifier and our Sorcerer level, even just by the time that we get this feature at level 14, we are adding a minimum of 19 temporary hit points. That assumes that we roll a 1 on our d4. And at this point, we have Sorceress Restoration, and we also have our Absorb Spells feature, which is hopefully hitting at least once in a while. And then again, we also have some spare spell slots that we could convert into sorcery points if we wanted to. The sorcery point engine isn't really stopping all that much by the time that we're at this point in our adventuring career. This is just so much free pseudo healing because again, it's just an incidental and we don't need to pay anything extra for this bonus. The fun part is that wasn't even the entirety of the feature. Hone Spellfire also upgrades the D4 that we used with our Radiant Fire to a D8. I want to mention that the way that this feature is written though is not 100% clear. I believe that the clear intent here is that we are not adding our Sorcerer level to the damage from Radiant Fire, though I can easily see someone misreading this and adding it by mistake. So while it isn't a quote-unquote problem, the way this feature was written should have been structured slightly differently to make this abundantly clear. Anyway, we are going to assume that it is not adding our level to the damage because I think that is very clearly the most likely interpretation and the clear intent. This is a bit underwhelming. Again, it's free, so it's a nice incidental, but adding like 4.5 average damage is likely to be far less impactful than constantly topping up your party on temps. Unless, of course, they're all already full, in which case, I guess this works. Incidentally, if we were adding our Sorcerer level, it probably would have been incredibly powerful, maybe even too good, and that's like a minimum of 15 damage when we get it. Now I'm just comparing this to the Scion Rogue's Aura of Malevolence that we discussed in a recent video, and this feature really underscores just how bad that one is. All that to say that Hone Spellfire is very good. I still think we're struggling to find a reason to want to use Radiant Fire over Bolstering Flames, but because it's free, it really doesn't feel all that bad. And finally at level 18, we have our capstone, Crown of Spellfire. The way this works is that when we use our innate sorcery, we gain 3 benefits as long as it's active. Once we've used this feature to empower our innate sorcery, we can't do so again until after we finish a long rest, or if we spend 5 sorcery points on it to refresh it, which does not require an action to do. I do want to quickly point out that refreshing this costs 7 sorcery points when it was in the UA, so while 5 is still not cheap, we do have a lot at this point, and I'll still take that over 7. Anyway, what are the 3 bonuses that we get? First, we get Burning Life Force. This makes it so that once per turn, when we are hit by an attack roll, we can expend a number of hit dice up to our charisma modifier. We then roll the dice and reduce the amount of damage that we would take by an amount equal to the number rolled. This is quite good, but is also likely a big part of why the refresh cost was reduced from 7 sorcery points to 5. In the playtest, the damage reduction also added our sorcerer level, which was ludicrously strong, and is probably why they removed it. At level 18, that likely accounted for the majority of the damage reduction from this ability, and you'd rarely be incentivized to actually want to spend more than 1 hit dice, since your sorcerer level alone was accounting for like 5 or 6. So the question then becomes, is this still good since it's just hit dice? There's a few things to discuss about this feature that do help justify it. Firstly, it has no impact on your action economy, at all. Provided our innate sorcery is active, this is free. It doesn't cost an action, bonus action, reaction, nothing. It's just something we can do. And odds are we're going to have our innate sorcery up most of the time at this point. Secondly, it does require an attack roll. It's worth noting that an attack roll is not exclusive to weapons and can also include spell attacks from either spells or even things like a mage's arcane burst. It does not, however, apply to failed saves from spells, though we will have something else for that later. So with all that, we're left asking, if we're still just burning hit dice, why would I do this over just short resting? At least when we short rest and use our hit dice, we also get to add our constitution modifier. Here we don't, so it's less efficient in that sense. But here we can do it proactively to help keep us from dying, but also, more importantly, if we're concentrating on a spell, reducing the damage taken also reduces the DC for a saving throw that we would need to make to maintain concentration on that spell. With all that, I think this is a pretty reasonable sub-feature. It's not broken, which to be honest it probably kind of was in the playtest. Now it feels way more fair, and again, it's only one part of the capstone. Next, we also get a fly speed of 60 feet and can hover. Take that, tattooed warrior monks. But honestly, flight is just always good. There's other ways for classes and subclasses to get it earlier, but I'm still not upset about this. It's great. And finally, we get spell avoidance. This makes it so that when we are subjected to a spell or magical effect that would force us to make a saving throw for half damage, instead, if we succeed, we take no damage, and if we fail, then we take half damage. This is good and helps to fill in the gap left by Burning Life Force, which did not apply to saving throw spells. There's a similarity here to evasion, however that works with any dexterity save, whereas for this, the effect does need to be from a spell or be magical. This means that while evasion would work for some dragon breath weapons, this one would not. I think this is a pretty great capstone. It gives us some nice features that all feel very connected to the subclass and all allow us to keep doing what we wanted to be doing anyway, and keep doing it for longer with additional ways to preserve our life. Overall, I'm a big fan of the Spellfire Sorcerer. I think it sounds so fun and flavorful, and I'm not really sure how else to say this so it doesn't come across as super boring, but it's just so efficient. The fact that basically everything that we want to do doesn't cost any resources and is just a bonus never makes you feel like your subclass is a burden or something you very carefully need to manage your resources with. It's an excellent subclass, and I'm sure a ton of people are going to really love playing it. So that's all I got. Let me know your thoughts about the Spellfire Sorcerer in the comments below. Check out some of my other videos, but otherwise, take care.